Hey guys, glad you're here! I just woke up from this weird dream where I wasn't a time-traveling character exploring these vaults and instead got to see them through a video game medium. Crazy, right? Thankfully, I only got through 2 of them before waking up. That'll teach me to drink new cold before bed. But that did give me an idea which vaults to talk about next. I need y'all to bear with me because this is kind of insane. But I swear it makes sense. You know, in a way where it doesn't make sense at all. When the time machine brought me to July 2258, I was messing around inside of it when I hit a funky lever. I still had all my memories, but everything was so much larger. I was on the ground, I couldn't stand, all my teeth were gone. But those were the least of my problems as I crawled out of my oversized clothes and stared at my chubby little limbs. I was a baby again! Apparently you have to be 18 or so biologically to use any of the time machine functions, so I was kind of at a loss. Even more so when it ejected me and vanished into the time stream. Human babies are very squishy. This was more dangerous than any vault I'd gone into yet. My options at this point were pretty limited. Die? Or crawl? So I started crawling. Eventually I came across a man in a lab coat, moaning about Catherine, his dead wife, and a name I couldn't make out, I'm guessing his child. He had lost both that day. But I needed help. So to get his attention, I did the one thing babies are known for. I started crying. He snapped out of his stupor and hurried to my aid. It seemed like I might be the project he needed to get going. I later learned his name was James, and he never let me call him anything else. James carried me across the wasteland through Megaton and finally ended up at Vault 101. They were shut off from the world, but James bartered his skills as a doctor in exchange for Sanctuary. The overseer decided that it was a good trade, so, with me in his arms, James carried us into the vault. I had a happy life in the vault with James, but there were a couple of key moments that really shaped how it turned out. The first was when I was a baby. He left me alone, so I started trying to explore, hoping the time machine would get me, but it never did. Eventually, James came back and told me about Catherine and her favorite Bible quote. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. I didn't understand what it meant or why she liked that quote, but I would eventually. He took me to play with my friend, Amada. It was boring since she just babbled at me, but it's nice to have no responsibilities as a kid. Well, no responsibilities until I turned 10. Again. My 10th birthday was one of the best days of my new life. Alphonse Almodovar, the overseer and Amada's dad, gave me a Pip-Boy 3000, which seemed less advanced than one sitting in my pile of clothes back in the time machine, which was weird. I'm still trying to figure out why Vault Tech distributed different Pip-Boys. Seems like another variable that could affect results. Anyway, I still had to go back to work, so child labor is cool here. But I got more presents. Amada gave me an old comic book that escaped the bombing. Old Lady Palmer gave me a sweet roll that I shared with Amada later. Stanley gave me a wicked cool hat that I put on, and Beatrice was kind enough to write me a nice poem that I'll upload for you all. Beyond that, I watched Butch get in trouble after trying to steal my sweet roll, learned Paul Hannon can't stand up to his convictions, and Wally Mack bragged about his party being better. Like, dude, there are kind of limited things to do in the vault. I imagine it can't have been that much better. I don't know though because I wasn't invited. Andy the robot destroyed the cake, and while I wanted a slice of birthday mush, James told me I had to go to the reactor room for one last surprise. I eagerly beelined down there when I found my old friend, Perpetual Virgin Jonas Palmer. That might sound mean, but Jonas tricked me into thinking I was in trouble. James showed up and told me they found an old BB gun, fixed it up, and set some targets for me to practice. I pretended to be bad because I didn't want them thinking I was born a cracked shot. Our rad road showed up though, and I wasted no time unloading in that thing. I hate rad roaches. Then of course there was the day I took the goat test. I feigned being ill because I was getting too comfortable here, and I needed to figure out how to leave soon. Every day I got closer to the day I licked that stupid satellite, and I was going to get back, even if I was the wrong age. I had to get back. I had 7 years left. While I waited for James to come see me, I got into his terminal, wondering if maybe there's something in here that could help me get out of the vault. All I learned is that Freddy Gomez is depressed with vault depression, Stanley has headaches because he's overworked, Amada's dad would not let her be examined without him being in the room, and that I'm really okay with violating HIPAA. Then I stumbled across some more interesting files. James was conducting some experiments. One, experiment 27CE, dealt with something outside the vault, but the other was more sinister looking. Experiment PP216 is more interesting to me. 216. That was Catherine's favorite verse. James had been stealing vault supplies for his own purposes, and Jonas was helping. I was gonna dig deeper, but I heard James come down the hall, so I quickly logged off. After a quick examination he phoned in, James saw right through me, and I saw the medicine bobblehead on his desk. I promised to take my test with no more fuss if I could have it, and he reluctantly handed it over. Outside the classroom, I saw Butch, Wally, and Paul, the newly dubbed Tunnel Snakes, harassing Amada with their admittedly sweet leather jackets. Enough was enough. I knew I could talk them out of hassling her by talking about the overseer coming down on them, but I had a better idea. I channeled the snake in the Garden of Eden and whispered in Wally Mac's ear that he was being used as a lackey. This got to him, and in a rage, he and Paul left. I would have to work on Paul later. But for the moment, this meant Butch was alone, which meant this would be a fair fight. I had him out on the ground when I stopped. I guess he'd be seeing James for some painkillers later. Ahmad and I stepped over him and into the classroom where Mr. Ross was getting ready to administer the test. I asked him if I really had to take it, and he said I could skip it if I really wanted to, but there were no wrong answers, so he just filled mine in randomly. Worried that it would give me a job like trash burner, I said I'd just take the test. There were some really weird and morally dubious questions in here, which made sense when I remembered who wrote the test. That was another thing. 16 years in here and I'd yet to figure out what the experiment was. It wasn't a control vault or would have been opened. I had a feeling the overseer knew, but he didn't like me because I was friends with his daughter. Ahmad and I turned in our test. She was slated for the overseer track, no surprise there, and I eagerly awaited my results. I was hoping for fry cook or shift supervisor. But no. As it turns out, I was to be the vault mailman. This was not the change of pace I was hoping for. On the bright side, every day I was on my job in like an hour, and was able to spend the rest of the day bothering Amada at her job and keeping my skills sharp at the range. I also explored every nook and cranny I could, but there were only so many hidden passages to go down. To celebrate Amada's success, we went to get lunch at the diner where I could mourn over not being able to oversee those greasy grills myself. Everything was fine for the next 3 years, except my increasing anxiety about my deadline. I needn't have worried though. James had the same idea as me. Amada woke me up one morning while I was having a great dream about her. We were playing cards in the diner and I kept winning. I tried to tell her about it, but she called me gross. No idea what that was about, but she was stressed so I let it go. She told me James left the vault and that Jonas was dead. I thought she was playing a really bad prank, but she was dead serious. She told me I had to leave or her dad would take drastic measures against me thinking I helped James. I was kinda hurt, not gonna lie. James never said a thing. He told me he loved me last night while eating dinner, but he often said that. Amada offered me a gun. I didn't want to need it. The people in the vault all had families, but I took it anyway. I could use it for intimidation and shoot people in the leg if I really needed to. I grabbed my stuff and left the room. If I had any thoughts left about this being a prank, they would have been squashed as the vault alarm and PA system blared. The place was infested with rad roaches, and James had apparently used that as a chance to escape. Officer Kendall tried to stop me, but the rad roaches were on my side apparently and attacked him. Butch then did stop me and asked for help for his mom who was afraid of the rad roaches. I was in a rush, but Butch's mom never did me any wrong. I followed him and killed the roaches. To thank me, he gave me the jacket I admired for so long, and I immediately put it on. I turned a corner when I heard Kendall asking Butch where I went. I was sure he was gonna sell me out, but he led Kendall down a different corridor. Maybe Butch was alright. God, the vault was a mess. Officer Gomez found me and let me go free knowing I wasn't involved, but Grandma Taylor, she was dead. Didn't see any injuries, so it must have been from a heart attack. I killed the rad roaches surrounding her and kept going. It was stupid to waste more time, but I stopped at the clinic. James put a new password on the terminal. I slammed my fist in frustration. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the Waller James had shake. No way. I moved it aside and there was a safe. I had one of Amada's old bobby pins in my pocket and started on the lock. I opened it up with an 300 cap, schematics for a rocket launcher for some reason, and an audio log from James he made the day we came in. I listened to it, but it made me mad more than anything. I saw Tom and Mary Holden and they were thinking about getting out too, but they're running towards armed guards. I tried to run and stop them, but my cries died in my throat as I watched them get gunned down. That was 4 people dead because of James. I snuck around and found a different way through. I passed by a window where Alan Mack was, and he was yelling and blaming me and James for the situation they were in. James is partially responsible, yes, but I think the rad roaches deserve my portion of credit. I passed by a dead Floyd Lewis as I snuck past Security Chief Hannon. I was able to see into the overseer's office. Amada had somehow beat me up here. I guess an officer escorted her? And it looked like the overseer, her own dad, was having Stevie Mack interrogate her. It looked like Mack was getting ready to hit her, and the overseer wasn't going to stop him, so I burst into the room. I felt sick. I had killed people before, more times than I like to admit, but this was different. I had never liked Stevie Mack, but I had known him for 19 years. I knew his family, his son! And now he was dead. Blood pooling on the floor from his head. Because of me. There would be time for regrets later, but I had to go on. I turned my gun on the overseer as a bluff. He said he hoped I was here to turn myself in, not even remotely intimidated by the fact I iced his top guard 30 seconds ago, and now had the same gun trained on him. I think he knew I wouldn't kill him, but I didn't have to kill him to escape. Talks broke down fast and I left him broken on the ground. Very much alive, but very much unconscious. I took his keys off him and Amada rushed to his aid. She thanked me for saving her from Mac and told me she'd meet me in a moment, but I could take the secret tunnel to escape. I went to the Overseer's computer and realized, this was my chance. I could finally learn what the experiment was. Time was of the essence, but not knowing would haunt me for the rest of my life. I looked at the files. No surprise, he kept detailed reports on a good amount of residents. I was kind of insulted that I wasn't on the list. Which was, though. The Overseer was using the tunnel section to do his dirty work and need to remind them that you put down a dog when it goes feral. Beatrice was also on the list for some reason. He just wanted to keep her comfortable and quiet until she died. Jonas was vexed and said he was a good medic and that hiding him in maintenance was a waste of resources. However, that didn't stop the guard from killing him. Lastly, his own daughter. He was upset that while she was a grown woman, she was pushing him away. I can't imagine why, dude. There are many more, but I had to find the experiment. What I did find was surprising. We were taught that the vault door never opened. I knew that was false because of how I got in, or I assumed they meant they opened it briefly then closed it. But before this fascist took office, they did expeditions into the wasteland. They were led by Ann Palmer, who I assume was Jonas's mother. She reported on the world up there and it sounded pretty much like everywhere else I went. They'd sent ambassadors to Megaton to establish relations and collect information, so the question is, why did they close the door again? I found an email from Dr. Braun. The name rang a bell. I'd heard of him during my travels, but never sat down to learn about him. He said Vault 101 was a control group, but I didn't buy that. There was an experiment here. This was confirmed when I learned there were sealed emergency protocols. That was where I found the experiment. Vault 101 was supposed to stay closed indefinitely to study the role of the Overseer in a vault that never opened. I am unsure how you're supposed to obtain the results of the vault that's never supposed to open, but I digress. To this end, Vault Tech recorded fake radio messages about the irradiated wasteland to make people believe the vault was the only hope for survival. The first Overseer was complicit in the experiment, and when it was time for replacement, made sure the second one was too. Going so far as to come up with a new slogan. We are born in the vault, we live in the vault, and we die in the vault. I guess there are no copywriters in the vault, because that is awful. It's unknown which Overseer failed to convince their successor to keep the vault closed, but the one in 2241 opened it for the survey team, violating the vault mandate. That Overseer disappeared during an expedition, and Almodovar took over. Whether intentional or not, he started the vault experiment with one hiccup. When he let James me in. Or at least I thought there was only one hiccup. According to the access records, which is definitely something that was recorded in this terminal, there had been 2 other escapees. One of the records was damaged and I can only conclude that it was between 2265 and 2267. The other was July 12, 2272. I remember those 2 residents disappearing, though I never actually learned their names. I think everyone just assumed they had been transferred to night shift trash burning. There was so much more, but I was out of time. I opened the tunnel and booked it. True to her word, Amada met me there, and together we opened the vault door. Right as we did though, Officer Wolf and Officer Park burst in. I knew them. They would hurt Amada just like Mac. I made it quick. I gave Amada the gun back so she could protect herself. We shared a brief goodbye and I stepped towards the door. I lingered in the doorway. I had 19 good years down here. Hanging out with James and Amada, playing Hunt the Mutant and Bingo, participating in the Cake Bake-Off, celebrating Founders Day even though I celebrated the first Overseer. But I guess it's all over now. I turned back one last time to give a smile and wave and I stepped out, Amada closing the door behind me. I honestly thought that'd be the end of my time here. That I would find James, figure out why he left, then figure out our next steps. Maybe I could take him to New Vegas with me. The Freeside Clinic could use some help. That's not quite what happened. It took a lot of work, but I was able to track James across the Capital Wasteland, and it's a good thing I did because he had gotten himself trapped. But that's a story for a different time. I said it was good literally seconds ago, but shortly after I saved his life, he died. He was working on providing clean water for the wasteland, and the Enclave, a group who might actually beat Caesar's Legion for the worst faction ever, tried to take it over for nefarious purposes. James sabotaged the project and died in the process. I was saved by the Brotherhood of Steel, and despite my drive to get to New Vegas, I felt I owed it to James to stick around, save his project, and avenge him, and my best hope for that was the Brotherhood of Steel. One day, while I was sitting around the Pentagon where the Brotherhood had based themselves, waiting for red tape to be cut through so I could take action, I noticed a new radio wave. Amada's voice rang through. It was a message for me. She wanted, or rather needed me to come back, and set her name as the new password for the vault door. I told Star Paladin Cross that I had to go back, and she said she would accompany me since she promised James or something. I told her it was alright, and that Super Soldier coming in behind me might not be the best look, but she insisted, so I relented. I trekked back through the wasteland and opened the door using Amada's name. Officer Gomez greeted me, which is good news because I actually liked him. The bad news was substantial. James and my leaving started a revolt which escalated into a full-on civil war. On one side, the Overseer and security forces trying to keep the vault closed, while a group of like-minded rebels wanted to open the vault and establish ties with the outside world. This led to significant casualties with some happening before. During the infestation, Paulhan and Junior succumbed to rad-roach bites he suffered. Mary and Monica Kindle died in a fire. Gloria Mack also passed away trying to be security. Beatrice Armstrong sprained her left toe and died when Andy, who everyone believed could do surgery, cut off her leg, killing her through shock and blood loss. Vicky Hannon, Chip Taylor, Janice, and Jim Wilkins all died during the revolt. Finally, although he was not dead, Edwin Bratz was arrested for his loyalty to Amada. I couldn't believe that James was indirectly responsible for all of this. I'm certain he never thought so many people died just because he escaped. This may not be my fault, but James wasn't around to fix the problem, so I would, and I would do it without bloodshed. Most of the older adults were not happy to see me, but they didn't attack me because I wasn't causing problems. I made sure to stay out of sight when I hacked into any computers. Despite the fact that I wasn't happy to see me, Alphonse agreed to meet with me, and I found the rebels, holed up in the clinic being led by Amada. After I finished my investigation and talks, I concluded I could deal with this problem in a number of ways. The first was the easiest. I could just leave. Even easier, I could have just ignored the radio broadcast and it probably would have gone away. But that was never a real option. Not for me. Other unthinkable options were killing Alphonse, which would have made Amada upset even if it would be cathartic, killing the rebels, which kind of worried me that would even cross my mind, or doing Blitz's idea and destroying the vault. Blitz's idea was also pretty easy, and I did briefly consider it simply because I wanted to look at the problem from all angles. I could easily do it, get into the terminal either by hacking or stealing Stanley's maintenance password, performing a manual override, a flush, and a purge. I discarded this idea because it would probably kill Stanley. I'm a big advocate for keeping surviving vaults operational, and most importantly, probably many other people would die. I don't think most people in the vault had what it takes to live on the outside even if they got to Megaton. The security guards were having trouble with rad roaches, and they were probably the best bet. James and I survived because we had experience out there. I even had a premonition where if I did this, Amada would be killed by the Enclave, and I'd find the whole Gomez family dead one by one. Speaking of the Gomez family, I found a letter addressed to their ancestors approving them for Vault 101. It's not really relevant, but I thought it was cool. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately actually, I also found a rejection letter for a different family. This left me with a few solutions I would consider good. I could convince Amada to stay in the vault. She would listen to me. Plus I found evidence of the Enclave trying to get in. That'd be enough to scare her. The vault would stay closed and they would be safe. But I didn't consider that right. Safe is nice, but it's stagnant. The people need to be free to choose their own path, even if it was dangerous. And I knew how to convince Alphonse. When I was freeing Mr. Bratz from jail, I found a plan for the other security guards. One proposed a midnight raid where they kill the first 2 rebels who fight back, so the rest stop resisting. It was despicable, and I wonder which security guard I spared that I shouldn't have. If the Overseer knew about this, then he knows he would have failed and given up, but just to be sure, I also had him do the math to show him that without genetic diversity, inbreeding or dying out was inevitable for the vault within a few generations. As much as I hate to admit it, he's a reasonable guy, about this only, and resigned. If the Overseer was someone like Alan Mack, who I bet would have replaced Alphonse if I killed him when I left originally, he probably just would have attacked me and I would have had to kill him. Anyway, Alphonse put Amada in charge. You can cry nepotism all you want, but she was obviously the best person for the job. She was on the management track and she organized the rebels. The people would follow her. I went to tell Amada the good news. I wasn't expecting a reward, but she gave me a modified utility jumpsuit. I told her I had stuff to do, but I would stick around for a while and help her organize the vault. That's when things got awkward. She told me I couldn't stay. There was still too much resentment towards me, and as long as I was there, it'd be a problem. I felt like I had been slapped in the face. She's my best friend, and she told me to get out and stay out. It only made things worse when she repeated some words I heard long ago.
I'm sorry. You're a hero, and you have to leave.
She must have seen my face fall and I guess misunderstood why. Turned away and walked out when I realized what was happening. I'm sure I hurt her feelings with that. But nobody was more hurt than me. It wasn't any easier with anyone else. Some people said sorry and some people were glad to be rid of me. But it was clear. No one welcomed me here. As I walked to the door, I heard it close behind me. I turned to see the last glimpse of my home for the past 19 years disappear behind it. Paladin Cross put a comforting hand on my shoulder, scaring me because I forgot she was here this whole time. Much later, I made my way back to Rivet City on errands, and I found Butch in the Muddy Rudder. He expressed interest in starting up the tunnel snakes again, and asked if he wanted to come with me. I was a bit of a goody two-shoes for him, but I managed to convince him to come along. He gave me free haircuts whenever wanted, so he was invaluable. We later encountered Susie Mac, who gave us free water, but made sure to tell me I was still not welcome back in the vault, ever. Butch could, though. Butch asked if I wouldn't mind waiting outside the vault door for 30 minutes while he and Susie Mac got reacquainted. I gave him a blank stare and left him there. I miss Sulik. That was the last time I ever saw someone from Vault 101. Well, there was that one time in the Commonwealth I think I found Rolling Mac, but he's really different looking. And a glowing one, so I don't know if that counts. I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting anymore. To this day, I still find myself wanting to go back to the Capital Wasteland to check on my old friends. Especially Amada. I don't know if I could take the heartache if they said no. Maybe one day. But not today. And not any day soon. With all that behind me, I returned to the Pentagon. I would realize James's dream for him, but for that, I'd have to go into a vault. But we'll get to that later. Vault 101 had a very tame experiment. So tame that I kinda miss it. It was stable, I had friends, a warm bed, and food that I didn't have to catch and cook over a perpetually flaming barrel. But it's missing one very important person, so I don't regret that I can never go back. It's just weird to me that Vault 101 and Experimental Vault survived this long, with people still living inside it to this day. I am glad though, because despite the animosity at the end, I still want my friends there to live long, happy lives. So it's a miracle that Vault 101 is still their sanctuary, because the vaults were never meant to save anyone.